Hey everybody, this is Cameron with Obnoxious Anonymous. Today I'm once again joined by actually somebody who hasn't been here in a while, Eric, and we are here to do the Twin Peaks Thought of the Day video for Monday, April 3rd, 2017. We're not that much further, Eric, from the show coming out, May 21st, less than
No,
2 months away. Are you just getting more and more excited, or are you getting more and more nervous?
I think it's definitely more excited. I kind of want to make sure I've got my I just moved into a new house, and so I really wanted to get my living room like perfect and have like the TV mounted. I wanted to be able to just let it wash over me on the evening of May 21st.
So,
That's
how are you going to do this? Are you subscribing to Showtime for, a short amount of months? Are you just buying it on iTunes as a pre-order? How are you going to do this?
I've actually been getting Showtime off and on, just the online version where you can get access to the Showtime app and you can still watch live stuff and you just stream it right to your TV. Price point on that's pretty good. I think I'm probably going to do that.
Yeah, it's like $10 and then you get a Chromecast for like 35. You're all good.
That's exactly right.
All right. So, my big question for you today is what are you doing October 31st, 2017 of this year, Halloween?
I'm probably rooting for Busta Rhymes when I watch Halloween Resurrection again. That's kind of what I had planned, but
You're a big
I
fan. You're a big fan of Halloween Resurrection, I take it.
oh, I mean that's the best one, isn't it?
Well, let me tell you something. Please just take that movie out of your Blu-ray player and clean off that date. We got a new book coming out here. Mark Frost is dropping volume 2. It's called Twin Peaks: The Final Dossier, and it drops, like I said, Halloween of this year, October 31st. What do you think about this idea that, because I mean, before Secret History came out, he had said on Twitter that there may be a volume 2 coming down the road.
Right.
And I think you were a little bit excited about that prior to even reading Secret History. So now that you've read the Secret History of Twin Peaks, are you more or less excited about another book coming out?
I, I mean, I think I'm maybe more excited because I mean, just think about like what's happening here. For 20, I mean, it's really 26 years, there's been no new Twin Peaks content. And now we've already had a book. We've got the series in less than 2 months. And then we're going to have this other book, this other tome, whatever it turns out to be. I sort of think that this book is going to be what the first book was originally billed to be, which
I
is I
agree.
think this is going to fill in kind of the intervening 26 years in more detail. Like whatever the show glosses over or only gives us a line of dialogue or whatever, I think the book is going to kind of be that intervening period. I mean, that's my guess.
Also, it's called The Final Dossier.
Hmm.
So this says to me, I know Showtime has left it open and said that there is a definite sort of conclusion to season 3 as being a standalone season. But if Mark and David want to explore it again later, there's always room to do that again.
Right.
But I'm thinking that this series is probably going to be it. And for the book to be called The Final Dossier, that says to me that we are definitely closing the chapter on this.
I agree. Where I think they may throw a curveball at us is because we know that the episode length, or sorry, the episode count increased, and we keep hearing like we've heard a time and again like first season and second season. We've heard a reference to seasons before, and so I think it's entirely plausible, and they're just not saying this, that we're going to get the first, what is it? There's like 18 episodes. We're going to get the first 9 this summer, and then there's going to be a back 9 next spring or next summer, which will kill me. But I think
But is that confirmed? I thought they were going to just play them straight through.
I don't know that it's confirmed, but I mean, there's really nothing confirmed in that
Right.
regard. We just know the start date of May 21st,
Right.
and we just know that various people at different times have used that terminology of seasons, plural.
Well, it
And so
make
I
it,
would,
it it makes sense. It makes sense
yeah,
because cable series are typically 10 to 13 episodes long. So it would make
right.
sense to split it in half like that.
Right. And I think you're the one who's made the point in the past too that from Showtime's perspective, if they can keep people subscribed rather than just, show up for the first, show up for 3 months and then cancel, which by the way is kind of what I do with Game of Thrones, but maybe that's a big enough draw. Like if they have people stick with Showtime, hey, maybe these people check out Homeland or they'll check out Shameless or whatever. It keeps people on the hook for longer. Again, I'm sure that would be driven by Showtime decision and not necessarily David Lynch and Mark Frost. But I mean, I'm sure it would have their blessing. If it's going to get like sliced in half, they must have some input as to where that happens or at what point in the story that takes place.
You know what though? I'm probably gonna disagree with you on this. I before maybe going back a few months, I'd say that's definitely a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where I say I don't think so anymore. And that is first night we're getting 4 episodes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
So they don't want to do half the season in one night.
That's actually a really that's a good point that I forgot about, is that it's not just a 2-hour premiere if you've got the online access, which again, that's how I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. Conceivably, yeah, you can burn through 4 hours or however they stretch it out, 4 episodes of the new season. That's a good point.
I've been saying lately that it's going to be wild because on that night we are basically going to be getting 2 Fire Walk with Me's that night, a length.
Well, I was going to say, I hope it turns out a little better than that, but
no, I'm talking about the length.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's a good way to think of it.
I mean, we're getting 4 hours or such, so that'll be amazing and fantastic. And I know this will come as a big shocker to you, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Mark Frost's first book.
Right.
So, am I excited about this new one that's coming out? I actually am, because like you, I firmly believe that this book is going to be what we expected the first book to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even like expected. The initial press release for the book described it that way from the publisher.
Right.
So I differ from you. I enjoyed the book. I think, with a little bit of retro, looking at it, hindsight, I think I would have liked more kind of on point Twin Peaks mythos, hanging around with, the creator of Scientology and some of the other stuff. While interesting, like in terms of like my Twin Peaks needs, I don't know that was quite what I was looking for. I still think it was a fun read, and if you listen to the audiobook, which I did, I've read and listened to the audiobook, I thought the voice acting was really great, and I thought they just had a great cast of people doing stuff. It's somewhat weird to hear Jerry Horn doing David Lynch or doing Gordon Cole, but regardless, I still thought the voice acting was superb, and so even from that perspective, I thought it was pretty neat. And it's escaping me right now who covered for, spoiler alert, well, I'll just call him the archivist. Maybe there are people out there who still haven't read it, but who happens to be a character that we know from the series. The voice actor who did it, since the original actor is not available, did a really good job. And actually, there's almost a part of me that wonders if he might portray that character in the new show if they recast it. I don't think he's on the cast. Len Cariou, that's the actor. I don't know that he's in the new season. I don't know if he's on the cast list for the new season. Maybe you remember. I don't know.
Well, a bunch of us think that cast list isn't everybody that's going to be in the new show.
Oh yeah, count me in that group. I agree with that.
I mean, the other day it came out that David Lynch is still filming the show.
What? And I thought that was like an April Fool's thing. I didn't know that was real.
And people are like, "Oh my God, he's still filming!" And it's like, of course he's still filming. I mean, big budget Hollywood blockbusters film all the way up until the last weekend before it opens.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're still 2 months away. You don't think they're doing pickup shots? I mean,
right. Right.
So I think, if someone wasn't available at a certain time, but they still want to work with that actor, I'm sure they can find a day to work with somebody. Yeah. And people, of course, online are going, cough, cough, Michael Onkeen, cough, cough.
God, we can dream, right?
Well, I think that there's definitely going to be some major surprises in terms of the cast.
Yeah.
I, you
I
know,
think I think if
I
anything,
will be personally shocked. Okay. I can maybe understand the Harry Truman thing,
yeah.
but I will be shocked if Hank Jennings is not in this show. And the reason why is because at the end of the series, they make a point to say that he's going away to prison for 25 years. And then we get the, I'll see you again in 25 years with the Laura Cooper thing. So everything's tying into this 25 years thing.
Yeah.
And then to kill him off in the book, and then we don't know if like that's real or if that's one of the other things. You know what I mean? I would just be shocked if he doesn't play, if we don't see that Domino show up in this series.
And Lynch, whenever he's asked about the book, he always says, "Well, that's Mark's history of Twin Peaks," which it kind of annoys me a little bit because they were sort of positioning the book as like this is a canon entry,
Yeah.
and Lynch is openly calling that into question. But I'll say, given some of the issues the book had with continuity, which again might be part of some, might be part of the storytelling that it's not accurate history, but whatever. There are some things that were said in the book, and that being one of them, that if it turned out not to be true, I like you would be gratified. Because even just from a pure just like acting standpoint, I like that actor a lot.
Well,
he's been in a lot of things, and I think he's just a good actor, and it'd be great to see him in it.
But also, Chris Mulkey is one of those actors who has, over the last 25 years, supported the Twin Peaks festivals and has gone year after year after year to different ones all around the world. So it would seem weird not to include him in the revival.
Right. And what's, the Hank Jennings character, Twin Peaks fans know him, like him, or, like to hate him, but when you think about Twin Peaks, generally speaking, people don't, unless you're a fan, no one who's Hank Jennings. Like, what does that even mean? Who is
well,
this
let me
guy?
tell you something. If you're not a fan of Twin Peaks, what the hell are you doing watching this podcast?
Well, no, no, that's not what I just mean to say that I don't know that they would include him feeling like, oh, the series will somehow be lessened by not having him in it. But I actually think that I think it would be. And you're right that there's some symmetry there, that he was going to serve the remainder of his sentence, which just happened to be like 20. I think you're right. I think it was like 25 years. Perfect time for all these paths to converge again. And it would just, I think it would be an interesting way to go.
Well, I am really looking forward to this new book, despite the fact that I didn't like the last one.
Yeah.
I may have liked the last one more if it had been a little more condensed. I think if it was maybe 100 pages less and not so meandering, I don't know, maybe I would have liked it more. But like you said, it wasn't, I wasn't judging it based on like, well, this is what I wanted. I was only going to accept what I wanted.
Right.
I'd be happy to get something as long as it was like interesting, and it just did not interest me. It felt more like I was reading a school textbook than something that I had been wanting to read for 25 years.
Well, keep in mind, in my case, because I was reading and listening, there were potentially passages that if I were reading only, I like you may have been like, oh my God, this is like 5th grade civics or something. Because I was listening to these like really great like voice actors, and just the way it all unfurled in the like on the audio CD, I think that's what kept me in it. It was also just really cool too, like when you get there, to just hear Kyle MacLachlan being Agent Cooper again, like that to me, like I got all jazzed up when I reached that part. Like I thought that was a really great sequence.
Yeah, he hasn't been Cooper since those Georgia coffee commercials, right?
Exactly right. He got out of the Black Lodge in those, though.
That's true. James and I have always said that's the secret season 3. and you know what? Because what shocks me, and I had just completely forgotten about this. I always assumed that those Georgia coffee commercials were made during season 2. But James said, no. They were made in 93 after Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah, because I think, weren't they also made around the same time that Bravo acquired rerun rights to Twin Peaks?
No, it was a couple years before that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is those Georgia Coffee commercials feel more like Twin Peaks than Fire Walk with Me did. And it was made after.
Yeah.
So Lynch still knew how to get that feeling,
Yeah.
right? He
Yeah.
just chose to make Fire Walk with Me, feel very different, which we're going to get to in a little bit because
Yeah.
I just think it's hilarious. I found some old reviews of Fire Walk with Me, and I just want to share them with Eric. Did you see the Kyle MacLachlan surprises everyone at the South by Southwest video?
I did. Yeah.
Okay,
It was aggressively short, but I did see it and I liked it.
right. It was very strange and very funny because I was teasing with James the other day. I said it felt like they grabbed a bunch of people who were waiting for pie and coffee and said, "Hey, why don't you come over here? We got some blueberry pie over here." And then all of a sudden, Kyle MacLachlan came around the corner, and you just saw people like this, like kind of in shock,
Yeah.
And and I don't know, it was quite funny, and just seeing everyone just like not know where the hell they were, like they felt like they were in the Black Lodge for a second.
I think
Because all of a sudden,
he comes off just
because
really warm in that sequence. To me,
yeah,
what I take away from that is like Kyle MacLachlan is a, you never know with like famous people how they
mhm,
actually are. I think the vibe he gives off both as Cooper and even just how he is on Portlandia and how he is in interviews. I think that's him. I think Kyle
mhm.
MacLachlan's just a good guy because there's some real weirdos at that thing, and he embraced them open
Well,
arms and
well, I would argue that Lynch doesn't. Um, I think that he writes roles for actors. So I think that he knew who Kyle MacLachlan was, and
yeah,
so he knew he could play Jeffrey Beaumont and obviously Paul Atreides. So he knew that he could handle Agent Cooper. So I think they wrote it for Kyle's strengths.
right.
Because you don't see Kyle at any point in that series like trying to act like Agent Cooper. He just is that character. And I think that's true for a lot of those actors.
Yeah.
You know, once they knew who they cast, they started tailoring the role for those people.
Even though they sort of stretch the limits of Michael Onkian's dramatic abilities at some of the later season 2 stuff, like with the Josie and the like
Oh,
her death and everything.
you missed I think one of our last podcasts where I screamed into the microphone. What was it? I, I never loved anybody more in my entire life. That one.
Put it down.
I actually never had a problem with it, but it was an extreme emotion that we'd never seen Harry have. So
Yeah,
it surprises.
yeah, I agree. I'm picking on it. Again, it doesn't take me out of the scene or anything. It just sort of, because I've watched it a million times now. When I do go back to it and I'm kind of not like honed in on the story and I'm just kind of nitpicking little things,
Mm.
that's definitely that scene in particularly where he confronts Josie over Eckhart's dead body and Cooper's got the gun on her too, and just like that.
Yeah.
He I, again, I think he plays that character extremely well, but again, I think that those quick emotional outbursts, I'm not so sure that he was quite prepared for those on the day.
Well, the best thing is Cooper's reaction, because when he screams about, I've never handed my gun over to anybody in my entire life,
Yeah,
and then when it cuts to Cooper and Kyle just says, well, this might be a damn fine time to start. I mean, it's like it's two different reactions. Harry's screaming and
yeah,
Cooper so calm. He's
right.
not like, Harry, give me the gun. He just plays it like, all right, this is a situation, like just very,
Yeah.
very cool and
And
calm.
I've always,
And
I've always thought that was, and it's funny. This is a scene I don't think we often talk about, but it's a good scene, and that delivery and that approach by Cooper is like, here's a guy who this is his dear friend now. He considers Harry a dear friend, clearly in trouble, and again, he's like waving a gun around. There could be some danger here, and he hones in on the approach to take is utter calm. This is my friend. I know him. The way to drop this situation back into normal levels is just, hey Harry, let's maybe now's a good time to start.
Yeah, and it reminds me of that other moment where, right after they get back from rescuing Audrey from One-Eyed Jacks, and Harry's, they're looking at each other across their desk, and Harry goes, Coop, he goes, you are the finest lawman I've ever known, but sometimes you think too much. And the way Cooper plays it is like when he goes, thank you, Harry. It's Cooper is acknowledging his own faults.
Yeah.
And just to see Kyle still, being cool and controlled, but still recognizing those faults. I mean, it's amazing what Kyle can do with his eyes.
Yeah.
Which is what always shocked me, because whenever Kyle MacLachlan, well, not whenever, but I would say 80% of the time, in my opinion, when he's acted in other people's movies, I don't really think he's as good as he is when he is in a David Lynch kind of material, because he knows how to play those layers and those subtexts. But I think a lot of other movies don't have layers and subtext, and he's just has to perform surfaces.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Kyle is the greatest actor at just surfaces.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense whatsoever?
It does, because I've definitely seen him in other things, but I'm torn, because I hear what you're saying, and I think I largely agree with it. I would note, back when I still watched Agents of Shield, and I think he was in like the second season of that show. Maybe I'm losing track of when various things happened, but he basically showed up one season. He was like the major guest star all season long, and to me, it was like Kyle MacLachlan giving a master class in acting to a bunch of like, TV studio children who, are used to playing big and can't really, pull off subtlety. And he made the most of a kind of outlandish role. And I think the only reason I stayed with the show as long as I did is because he kind of pulled me through that whole one season, and it was based purely on his ability to deliver pretty silly dialogue and actions, and the various things he was doing.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, when I see him in Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks and things like that, I can honestly tell you that he is one of my favorite actors ever.
Right.
And yet, when I've seen him in some other things,
like Showgirls,
I actually like Showgirl. I actually think I think him and Gina Gershon are two of the actors who actually know the movie they're in.
That's fair. Okay.
And everybody else thinks they're in some like Oscar winning film. and I think him and Gina Gershon like play it up as like they're in Valley of the Dolls or something, just very campy, and I like that. But I've seen him in a lot of movies, because I, obviously big fan, so I always seek out his stuff. And outside of The Doors, which I think he's amazing in as Ray Manzarek, I think it takes a really good, strong director with a vision, and he can get behind and do those layers. But then there's so many other things that I've seen him in where I can't even believe this is the same man that is in these other movies.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, they didn't have enough time, they didn't know how to direct him well, this isn't the right fit for him.
Right.
But like, there are so many movies where I watch and I go, I love you as an actor, but I'm not connecting with you at all in this material. But then you watch something like Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks, and there's like this perfect symbiosis of material and character with him.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying I think a lot of the role was written for him. He is Agent Cooper.
Well, I think David Lynch is just again, this is no surprise to anybody who's a fan of this channel or David Lynch, but he's so clearly an actor's director. Because I think some people will come into roles and they'll ask their director questions about things, and they'll ask questions like, well, I don't get my motivation here, and like, you don't need to understand it, your character does, like that kind of nonsense. Whereas David Lynch, I saw something, I don't know if it was an article I read or a brief snippet, but it was like Jim Belushi was talking a little bit about his role in the series. And he didn't really give anything away, but he was talking about how David Lynch was directing him for the scene that he's in, and just the level of detail like that he was giving him about what would, basically just the actions the character's performing in the scene, not even really what he's saying or what's happening, but it was something like, you need to understand something. This man having coffee in the morning is the most important part of his day. He takes his time with it. Every pour, every drop of cream, every spoonful of sugar is important. Like he's directing him on like how the character is like getting his coffee in the scene. You don't get a lot of directors who do that. So I think you're right is ultimately what I'm building toward in that I think Lynch just hones in on an actor's strengths and gives them exactly what they need to play the role, the way that he envisions the character in his head. I don't think actors have too many. It's not like actors don't know what they're doing in scenes. Like Lynch makes it pretty clear to them, what they need to do, why they're doing it, and what they're thinking.
Yeah, it actually makes me laugh because I'm looking for this thing. I can't find it right now, but it talks about a scene in Fire Walk with Me when Laura is at Harold Smith's house, and
Right.
it said that they got so intense doing the scene that the actor, which I just can't believe I just forgot his name, but the one who plays Harold,
Yeah.
he looks over and he said that he could see David Lynch behind the camera doing a leprechaun jig. So, so isn't it? Oh, it's Lenny Von Darlin, Dolan. Yeah. So anyway, so he said that he was doing a leprechaun jig, which always made me laugh. Like, what the hell? And then when I saw the scene, I was like, it's an all right scene. I like the scene, but I don't know if that's worth a leprechaun jig, but okay, So I think there's probably a little bit more to that scene that we didn't get to see,
Yeah.
as like with everything else with Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
Okay, so yesterday I surprised everyone by making a little video about some potential news that got dropped into myself and James's lap. James made a video this morning with a group of friends on his YouTube channel, Hurley Journey Vids, VIDZ. And he was, he's talking, shooting the shit like he does all the time. And he was just like, oh yeah, I think Cameron, he just made all that up. And I'm like sitting there watching the video going, you son of a bitch, you know this, we got this information. And, and we were said that, obviously to share it. So I did.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was just kind of having a little sport with that. But anyway, you heard this information. Let's not go into too much details in case someone doesn't want to know or hasn't seen the video. But what did you think of the information I said and the video itself?
I was excited by it. I mean, when you were talking through the footage, you kind of were describing how you feel hearing it. And, you made it clear that, you're usually someone who's very spoiler averse, and this didn't really trigger your kind of alarm sense. You just thought it made you more excited for what we're going to see soon. And I felt the same way. Like, I thought what you presented was just enough of a tease that it like just make it just, 100 questions pop into my head. And to me it didn't ruin anything. It was but a tiny snippet, a glimmer of something, and all with the caveat of it may not even be true. Again,
Right.
and you made that very clear. It's like, listen, this is what I was told, this is what they said, but I you know I was excited by it. It didn't like make me think like, oh damn it, I really wish I didn't know that. Because I think I've made that admission on this channel before with you that I accidentally spoiled myself for the Lost season 3 finale reveal. Which again, I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it here, but there's a pretty big reveal at the end of Lost season 3, and I stupidly was reading like spoiler sites and I ruined it. And I always think about how much better it would have been if I'd been surprised by it when I watched it. So I too am trying to avoid like really hardcore spoiler stuff for this, but this was exciting information, I thought.
I read a synopsis online years ago for the final episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was sort of a fun fan thing that I was reading.
Yeah.
Then I watched the final episode, and it was beat for beat what I read.
Oh, man.
So the final episode of a series that I've been watching for 7 years, I already felt I was watching a repeat.
Oh man,
And
and that
that
finale
just
is really good too.
it's really good. It should have been a 2-hour finale.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah.
It's the bad thing about it is it's all plot and very little character. It's very much like we gotta end this thing.
Yeah.
It really needed a 2-hour finale to kind of breathe a little bit. It's so jam packed. But anyway, yeah, no, like I said, I didn't even know if this information is true, but I thought it was interesting, and it got me thinking. And whether it's true or not, to me, is irrelevant. The point is that since it's been a long time since Twin Peaks aired. I know for a lot of you, Twin Peaks is still a new thing. You've watched on Netflix, or you got the Blu-ray set, or the gold box, or whatever. But for someone who started watching the show in 1990, it's been a while since I've had something to think about or dream about in terms of Twin Peaks. I knew that the show was coming out May 21st, but I don't have any nuggets of possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, we can speculate, we can theorize about what could happen in the show, but here was a few fragments of potential information. And I don't even know if they're connected to each other, or even if they're, true possibilities in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But just for a brief moment, it made me go, oh my God, the possibilities are truly endless of what Lynch could do with this new show.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share that with people. And, not only that, but we had permission to do so. So who knows? I mean, the whole thing could just be a way of just generating more buzz and more anticipation for a show that, none of this happens.
Yeah.
But to me, that's irrelevant. To me, it was about yesterday on Sunday, April 2nd. A bunch of Twin Peaks fans heard these little nuggets of potential information, and we looked forward instead of backwards.
Right. New content, new information. I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, potential new content. Let's just say
potential new content. Yeah.
So the reaction actually was incredibly positive. I with the hashtag keep the mystery alive, I assumed that I was going to get a lot of hate messages with that one.
Yeah.
But no, I actually only got one. And the rest of them were generally very positive and wonderful because they knew what I was doing. I wasn't trying to ruin the Twin Peaks experience for anybody.
Right.
It was just a way of getting people more and more excited about this new show. So
it got me excited. Again, I was going back and forth to Lowe's. We were doing work in my new house, and I actually stopped in the parking lot because I get notifications since I'm subscribed to the channel, and I saw what it was, and I was like, oh God, I want to see this. Especially because, well, there was a part of me that wondered, like, is this some kind of April Fool's thing? Because I know your position on spoilers. Like, you don't want to know anything. So there was a part of me that thought it might be just sort of a funny joke, and that's kind of what got me to watch it. But then as I was watching it and I saw what it actually was, I was sitting there in a Lowe's parking lot thinking, like, oh man, like that's really cool. This is kind of neat. So yeah, my reaction was very positive as well.
So earlier today, I got a couple messages, but I'm going to start with one that I thought was kind of funny. It was that somebody wrote into the page on one of the videos and wrote, I guess this was a video that James and I did, and they said, I take it you and James aren't Cooper Audrey shippers.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what shipping is, right?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. For those of you who do not know, shipping is when you take two characters, whether they're together or not in a TV show, and you sort of relationship together. A lot of times you combine their names and that type of thing. But I just was laughing so hard because we were probably talking about Annie Blackburn and probably John Justice Wheeler. And of course, there's this whole movement out there about if this show does anything, it needs to just have Cooper and Audrey end up together, which I think if that happens, obviously depends how it's done. But if that does happen, it will just reek of like fan fiction to me too. You know what I mean? Like, all right, we gotta have these two together. It doesn't sound like that's what's gonna happen because Sherilyn Fenn didn't sound too happy, earlier in the year with some of those tweets and stuff like that about the show. So who knows? But maybe that's what David Lynch is shooting right now.
Maybe those are the pickups. Yeah.
Maybe those are the pickups. He's got Cooper singing "Love Me Tender" to Audrey on top of a convertible. I remember, if you read the Wild at Heart book, Sailor kisses Lula and then leaves. Yeah. And it's as the end of the book is, Sailor walked away and Lula let him. Now, David Lynch, I remember at the time there is a Siskel and Ebert special. I think it's on YouTube somewhere, but I remember seeing it at the time. And it was funny because I am in 8th grade, and I see David Lynch giving this interview about Wild at Heart that's going to be opening later that summer. And he's wearing his shirt all the way buttoned, but no tie. Yeah. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I actually went to my 8th grade graduation in that look. Of course, nobody understood it, but that's fine. But anyway, he talks about in that Siskel and Ebert special that there was a temptation to end the film that way because that is the non-Hollywood commercial way.
Right.
And that is the way the book ends. But he decided to change the ending and have it be a happy ending. But he made it clear, he's like, I did not do this for box office potential. I did this because Sailor and Lula, in my vision, needed to be together.
Yeah.
And I think he made the right choice.
Yeah.
The same thing happened a few years later when Tony Scott made True Romance. In the script, Christian Slater dies. Tony Scott had Tarantino kind of rework it so that he and Alabama went to Mexico together with their kid Elvis.
Right.
Spoilers. Yeah. And Tarantino says Tony Scott made the right decision for his movie.
Right.
If Quentin Tarantino had made True Romance, it would have ended the way he wanted it to.
Right.
But Tony Scott made this sort of like fairy tale type of movie, so it made sense.
Yeah.
And I think Wild at Heart, having that Wizard of Oz motif and things like that, it makes sense for Sailor and Lula to be together. If it had ended just with her screaming, "Sailor, come back," credits, I don't know how people would have reacted to that film. But then again, people were reacting very, different ways with the finished film anyway.
Right.
And let's be honest here, him singing Love Me Tender" to Lula did not rip the box office a new one.
Right.
People were still like, what the hell is this movie? Funny story, I saw Wild at Heart 5 times in the movie theater when it came out.
Jeez.
I saw it twice by itself and three times playing double feature with Pump Up the Volume. Yeah. All right. That's a great movie though, Pump Up the Volume.
The 90s were a magical time.
It was 1990. It wasn't quite the 90s.
Oh, that's true. That's still basically the 80s. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So anyway, this person goes on YouTube and accuses James and I of not being a Cooper and Audrey shipper, right. which I thought was hilarious. So I responded back by saying, shipping is for shows that play on the CW network. Oh, am I boring you, Eric?
No, no. Hold on. I'm a parent. That's all this is.
He's a parent that lives in Everett. He used to live in Snoqualmie, but now he lives in Everett, Washington, which is where Laura Palmer's house is. But you didn't buy Laura Palmer's house.
No, it was on the market 2 years ago. I could have afforded it too, I think. But no, we're a little south of that. I do need to find it though. I'd like to go into that neighborhood and kind of drive around.
See, I really think that someone should have bought it and just turned it into like a museum for Twin Peaks and just charged money.
I think around here the market for houses I think is so nuts. I don't know who would have done that because it's a really nice house too. So that helps.
Right. So I said, continuing on, shipping is for shows that play on the CW network. When Twin Peaks came out, there was no such thing as shipping. While Dale and Audrey had chemistry, most people don't end up with every person he or she has chemistry with.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things, Audrey was still in high school and related to a murder mystery the FBI was heavily involved in. Sorry, Cooper didn't just leap for the easy lay.
Right.
Yes, there was behind the scenes drama that prevented that relationship from happening, but things worked out just fine. It's not like the show would have hit season 3 in 1991 if Cooper hooked up with Miss Horn after Laura's mystery was solved.
Yeah.
And I concluded with, remember, Annie Blackburn is in Fire Walk with Me, and Audrey isn't. Not even a mention.
That's true. She's not. I mean, Johnny Horn is mentioned, but she herself is never directly referred to at all. Yeah.
He is never mentioned
Johnny Horn's mentioned because
in the missing pieces.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm confusing with. I thought there was a reference to his birthday party, but you're right. Maybe that's in the missing. Yeah, okay.
Pieces.
Yeah, in the missing pieces. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. They don't even say the name Audrey once in the show.
That's true. And if you cut out the missing pieces too, there's not even really a mention of Benjamin Horn.
No, there's not.
Because he's only meant like Leland mentions the Norwegians and some of that stuff in the missing pieces, but yeah, because none of that's in. It begs. It's just amazing how so much of that movie is cut out of the theatrical. Well, again, the movie, the missing pieces are sort of a separate entity. From the show. I mean, you don't even see Big Ed and Nadine. You don't see Sheriff Truman. You don't see Andy. You don't see Lucy. You don't see Ben. You don't see Audrey. And yeah, to your point, it's like you see Annie Blackburn. She appeared in the last 4 episodes?
6.
Was it really 6 total?
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, even so, again, out of 29, she's in but a fraction. And all these, quote unquote fan favorite characters don't.
Right. What's fascinating is that I'm going off the 1993 film comment here. I love this sentence here where it says, Fire Walk with Me is a slasher movie staged as an elaborate pseudo-religious allegory. Again, that makes me want to see it.
Yeah.
Another thing that this film comment says, and I understand, Fire Walk with Me has really gotten this, like, I haven't seen revisionism like this since Halloween 3 in terms of a movie that almost every Twin Peaks fan detested. I didn't. I really liked the movie, but most fans detested it because they were surface fans for the most part.
Yeah.
But you still have to look and say, hey, there are some things that if Lynch had more time, he could have done this, he could have done that. Maybe there wouldn't have been so many missing pieces if he had actually written some good scenes for some of these actors to do. You can't you can't think for a second that the Josie Pete Martell scene would have ever been in that movie. I don't know why they even shot it, because it never would have fit.
Yeah, because that's the only scene either of them are in. So it's not like that scene's there and it would have been connective tissue to something else. They're not in it. Well, nothing else that we've seen. Right. I think you're the one who makes the case that there's likely a lot of other footage that still hasn't been.
There's a tremendous. If you read the script, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we haven't seen from that, and that Lynch, in his improvisational style, shot a bunch of stuff that's not even in the script.
Yeah.
But so this is where Film Comment says, it's depressing to think that Fire Walk with Me is the Twin Peaks movie that David Lynch yearned to make. Now, even if you are a fan of Fire Walk with Me, you have to know and think that, right? I mean, you have to go, there was so much potential that Lynch could have done with the material that wasn't done. In fact, some of the missing pieces, some of those scenes are better than some of the scenes we have in the movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for instance, I mean, they're talking about, there is in fact an unmade, infinitely more potent version of Laura Palmer's Last Days, the Diary of Jennifer Lynch.
Yeah.
It says, in the secret diary, Laura Palmer is a demanding, difficult presence. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's that's not the Laura we get in the diary is not the Laura we get in the movie. The Laura we get in the show that everyone talks about is not the Laura we get in the movie.
Right.
We get it's kind of like what Patricia Keneally says about Jim Morrison's about Val Kilmer's portrayal of Jim Morrison in The Doors.
Yeah.
She says, "I'm not saying that that stuff didn't happen. I'm saying that's not all that happened."
Right.
And the thing is, though, is that yes, we get these dark moments of Laura Palmer's life, but at the same time, the show makes it very clear that there was so much lightness to her as well, and we get none of that in the movie. We only get the dark, dreary Laura Palmer. We don't get the Laura Palmer that is having visions of the little man in Cooper the night before she died. We don't get the Laura Palmer that's tutoring Josie Packard in English.
Right.
You know, we don't get any of that. But anyway, like I said, he only had 135 minutes to make the film. But there's a few scenes in the missing pieces that maybe should have been in the movie. Maybe something else should have been taken out. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Because there are a few moments of lightness, like you're referencing. Again, not the specific scenes you're referencing, but there are moments of lightness that I wish had been part of that final movie. Because you're right. I think that's what makes that movie sometimes such a slog. Is that, she's going to die at the end. That's a pretty rough scene anyway. But, just even building to that point, it's just like a complete train wreck of self-destruction. And
does it really build? Because it just kind of, I mean, if you go in the script, it says, 3 days until Laura's death, 2 days. And so it's almost just like a countdown.
Yeah.
Rather than an actual story that builds to a terrifying conclusion. And like I've said many times on this podcast, I know Lynch was going for a different thing, but the scene in the finale of season 2 premiere episode when Ronette has that vision of Laura being killed in the train car is infinitely more frightening than anything we get at the end of Fire Walk with Me.
Right.
But then again, I mean, it may be Ronette's vision, and I know Lynch is trying to go for this angelic Laura Palmer, like you said, like the pseudo-religious thing.
Yeah.
And I say all this stuff while saying that, I love Fire Walk with Me. I have the script, I have the DVD, I have the VHS, I have I have the Blu-ray of it, obviously. But it's just, it is just kind of what's kind of frustrating is because he had all the materials and, him and Bob Engels wrote this script at such a speed that I don't really think, like Blue Velvet. I mean, he wrote like 5 or 6 drafts of that script.
Yeah.
I think that they just wrote like 2 drafts, a draft and a half of Fire Walk with Me and said, go, shoot it.
Well, isn't Ingalls the one who makes reference to much earlier drafts where like Cooper is much more a part of it? So, I mean, I think it's plausible that there are versions of the movie out there that, drafts of that script that, may never see the light of day, but that, one of them has like in a drawer somewhere. Mm-hmm. I think the point you're making, I think, is right. I think they rushed to get the movie out, and I have to wonder if maybe there wasn't some time pressure that the show just got canceled, and if you're gonna make this movie, you need to do it within like a year's time, and if you can't, then well,
like we've said, the show's final episode ends June 1991.
Right.
The movie premieres May of 92. 11 months.
Right.
So, like I've said, if Lynch had 5 more months with the film, I think the film itself is different.
Right.
I think that time crunch really put that on him. Like if Lynch was able, if the studio had said, if New Line, the distributors here in the States had said, we're going to let you go to 2 hours and 45 minutes with this movie.
Yeah.
I think he would have taken the 245. I think a lot of those missing pieces would have been pushed back in.
Yep. It's frustrating to think that like movies now, friggin' Batman versus Superman, that's like an hour it's like 2.5 hours to more than that.
It's 3 hours in the expanded cut.
God, like just movies can be pretty much any length now. I mean, again, if it's got the right franchise behind it or whatever.
Mhm.
And we couldn't even get a Twin Peaks. Again, Firewalk with Me is what, like an hour and 35 minutes or something like
No,
that?
no, 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 no. It's no, it's 2 hours and 15, 135 minutes.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It always seems to go quickly for me. Even though I've described it like a slog sometimes, I always feel like the movie kind of moves at a pretty good pace that,
Well,
it feels maybe shorter than it is.
yeah, I mean, what I was saying to Dirk, who has been on this podcast a number of times as well, I said, when you watch the deleted scenes of Blue Velvet, they're cool to see,
Yeah.
but you understand why they're not in the film.
Right.
When you see the deleted scenes from Wild at Heart, they're cool to see, but you get why they're not in the film.
Right.
When you see the missing pieces of Fire Walk with Me, I can name at least 5 or 6 that should have been in the movie.
Right.
And that's the big difference, is that
Right.
if Lynch was allowed to go to 3 hours, Fire Walk with Me is a different movie.
Yeah.
And I think that you could have given Lynch 2.5 hours, 2:45, 2:50, and I think he would have taken it all the way to that last minute.
Right.
Because he was allowed 2 hours and 15 minutes for US distribution.
Right.
The movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Right.
So
he brought it right up to the edge and fit in.
Right. So when people say to me, "Oh, I wish he'd put these missing pieces," and I said, I understand, but he didn't have more time. It's not like today, right? So my thing I like to throw out is, so take the missing pieces scenes that you'd want to put in the film, time them out. Let's say they clock in at 15 minutes, right? Go into Fire Walk with Me and now cut out 15 minutes to put your 15 minutes in. What do you cut out? And I think where you're gonna have to cut out is you have to remove almost half of the Teresa Banks stuff.
Yeah, because it always feels like that's the other thing about that movie, is it feels like two different movies.
But
And
that's been Lynch's style ever since. Lost
Yeah.
Highway, Fred Madison to Pete Dayton, 2 different movies. Mulholland Drive, 2 different movies. Inland Empire, 2 or 3 different movies, So, I mean, it's just Fire Walk with Me started the trend of breaking his movies into not 2 halves, but 1 part and then a second part.
Well, here's a question then. Could he do something similar with the new season? Because remember, the script was written as one whole piece,
right?
Not sections. Or, I mean, again, it may well have acts or whatever, but
I wonder remember when it was first announced, it was supposed to be a 9-episode series,
right?
And then they said, "Oh, we got all this other stuff." So, did they just expand those 9 episodes to be 18 episodes, or is there really 2 stories?
Right.
Are we going to get 9 episodes of He Said and then 9 episodes of She Said? I mean, does Mark
From
Frost
Andy Blackburn's point of view?
I'm just saying Mark Frost's book brings in this whole thing of timelines not matching up. So maybe we're going to get maybe we're going to get good Cooper's point of view and bad Cooper's point of view.
I think, again, I said it on the Twin Peaks Worldwide page a little while back. And I didn't mean it as anything more than it was. I literally did. Like, I woke up one morning, and you know this. I mean, you write. You have creative endeavors, and sometimes when you're asleep or just before you're about to wake up, you just get these thoughts. It's almost like your mind opens and you see things with such clarity. I woke up one morning and I had just this very clear image in my mind of Cooper in the woods, like kind of almost like he didn't even know where he was. Like he had been in the lodge, but now he's not, and he's just in the woods. And by the way, I'm just going to say, because again, everybody's very sensitive about this, potential spoilers. But again, this is just literally, this is from my fevered brain. And that our entry point into the new Twin Peaks is that the good Cooper, our Cooper, because he's been gone for 25 years, we will see the world 25 years later through his eyes, because he's going to come back and have to figure, everybody's older, learn what's going on, and try and figure out and uncover what the bad Cooper has done while he's been gone. And I saw this so clearly one morning just before waking up. Like I wrote a post about it. I could be 100% wrong, but I saw that. And so you saying this, that like maybe it's, good Cooper's perspective, bad Cooper's perspective, that would actually seem to fit within what I'm thinking, that we're going to need to have some kind of juxtaposition of, again, if that's accurate, what good Cooper is doing versus what bad Cooper has done or is continuing to do. I mean, again, we don't know the shape the story will take. But that's fascinating. And again, that would be pretty bold to try something like that. I think it'd be neat.
I agree. So real quick, let's just get to this wonderful piece of hate mail I received today.
Yes, please.
So this is in regards to the video I made yesterday. This comes from one of our loyal watchers, Joel. I'm assuming he's a loyal watcher because he is posting stuff that obviously suggests that he's seen a number of the videos. So
yeah,
thank you for your support. Before I read this comment.
Yeah.
So this is what he writes. And I'm going to do little comments in between. He says, want to know what I think? This is in regards to the video I posted yesterday again. I think if I was someone affiliated with the Twin Peaks production and I was leaking info to you only for you to turn around and put it in the public space and increase the amount of pressure on the production to find the leakers, considering my career and personal financial future would be at risk, I'd put my foot so far up your ass, my shoelaces would be covered in snot. Okay, now, before I go any further, Eric, do you think what I said yesterday, in which I was touching on a few possible fragments, do you think that what I said would throw somebody's job into into possible, like, them getting fired?
I don't think so. I mean, there's nothing there really to, like you gave us impressions. You gave us kind of a couple images, impressions, thoughts, really.
I didn't show like still photographs of the scene being shot.
Right. It was purely, I'm sorry, when I say images, I mean you described a kind of, you described elements of a scene, a potential scene.
Right.
And clearly Joel wasn't paying attention to your preamble anyway, because the people were willing to tell you. Again, based on the information you gave, you even asked them straight up. You're like, hey, is there anything you could share that might be interesting for our subscribers or whatever? And they gave you these little tidbits. I don't think there's really enough to form plot or anything. They're just interesting notes.
And so, again, it was using two characters that we already know are in the show.
Right.
And we're assuming they're going to cross paths at some point.
Right. So no, so yeah, the short version is no, I don't think someone's job would be at risk over that.
Exactly. I agree. All right, he continues. You, meaning James and I, have no shame. So if any of your claims of having contacts inside are even remotely true, then obviously those contacts have no honor anyway. You know what I smell here? Hashtag keep the mystery alive, snotty Lynch obsessive on the internet.
Yes.
And again, nobody asked you to watch the video.
My reaction when I first heard about the comment is that, as much as you may not like it, it is 2017. The television, film, entertainment, popular culture that exists now is not the same one that existed in 1990. It's just not. And so to think that for some reason, for Twin Peaks only, people on the set aren't going to talk, The people like in the production crew aren't gonna, maybe slip out little tidbits of things here and there. To think that, oh, everything but Twin Peaks is special. It's the one thing that's not going to happen. I think is ludicrous, and it's I think you describe it well, where it's this David Lynch groupie thing that I like David Lynch a lot too. I think he's a great filmmaker. I think he's a great storyteller. It's but again, he's one of many filmmakers, and he works in an industry that has changed over the past 25 years. I just think it's unrealistic sometimes, the expectations that appear to have been put upon this new season of Twin Peaks. Like, it's supposed to be different from anything else on TV.
And I'm somebody who truly hates legitimate spoilers.
Right.
And like you said earlier, I feel, in my opinion, that I put it in a way that was kind of non-spoilerific. I mean, I don't think you could, like you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, I told these fragments of information without going, okay, here's the scene by scene, line by line thing that happens. Let me drop you the script page here.
Right.
I mean, there are other websites that are going to be doing this in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that whole scenes, script pages, things like that, you're going to start seeing them the closer we get to air date.
Yeah.
Ain't it cool news is going to get a script leak to them. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're going to hear about this, and it's, I will say, yeah, there's a script leak. If you want to read it, here's the link to do so, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Right.
And I don't think that what I said to you yesterday or in the video yesterday really spoiled anything. I mean, I can't even comprehend what I just said the other day. You know what I mean? Like, I've been thinking, like, what could that mean? And like I said, it's all about making you dream again and think about Twin Peaks again in a forward thinking way, as opposed to just like, just like, oh, well, I guess that plot is ruined now. I mean,
yeah.
All right. So he continues, of course, because people like this their comments just keep going and going. Good luck with trying to get Showtime on your side while you continue to shoot yourselves in the feet for a little bit of notoriety. Now, this video that I posted yesterday has, I think, about 300 views. Hardly what Screen Junkies, Collider, Comic Book Girl 19, Red Letter Media gets in 5 minutes.
Right.
So notoriety would be me getting 81,000 views and going like, I went viral.
Yeah.
The video has like 300 views. You know why? Because Twin Peaks, as much as I love it, as much as I think it's one of the greatest shows ever to air on TV, it's still a niche thing.
Yeah.
Very few people outside of us care right now. When the show hits and all the wonderful people in the world, that are Twin Peaks fans, dive into the show, their friends are going to feel left out. And that's when you're going to get this mass thing happening for about a few weeks before all their friends jump ship when they realize how bizarre, surreal, and weird this is. Yeah. But I love the fact it was like, good luck with trying to get Showtime on your side. I got news for you. They are on our side. You know why? Because for at least 4 years doing these videos, we have been doing free marketing for them.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I make one of these Twin Peaks videos, it's just free marketing for Showtime. So yes, they are on my side. I haven't done anything to upset Showtime because all I'm doing is bringing them more people to subscribe to them. Right. Because I'm getting more and more people excited about this new show. So anyway, I just think it's absolutely hilarious that this guy is schooling me on Twin Peaks and David Lynch when, I was watching Twin Peaks and David Lynch movies before this guy was even swimming in his father's testicles. All right, so here's one thing that I want to get into, though. He says, all that trolling you guys, meaning James and I, did on the Dugpa forums, only to steal the spoilers there for a scoop. You two have burned so many bridges, you'll be stuck on an island after season 3 airs, and you'll have nothing left to offer. Well, if season 3 is it, that's all that Twin Peaks will have to offer. So, I mean, we can talk about it and dissect and analyze it and think about it. But if it's over, it's over. I mean, Game of Thrones is one of the biggest shows of all time. But when that show ends, a lot of the fans of Game of Thrones are going to say, okay, what's the next show we're going to get obsessed about?
Right.
They're just going to move on to something else.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that that's what I'm going to be doing, but just saying that, you act like, I'm just going to have nothing left after season 3. Plus, trust me, there's lots of shows to get into and other movies to talk about. But I love this thing where he says all that trolling you guys did on the Doug forums. Now, I can't.
I like that as well. That was one of my favorite parts.
It's one of my favorite things. Now, here's the thing. Before I did my Jennifer Lynch interview that I did, I had never really looked at Twin Peaks anything online. Certainly not long term. Like I would type in maybe, I want to watch the trailer for this, or this moment here on YouTube, and occasionally I would see Doug and I can't remember what it was called, like World of David Lynch or something like that. And occasionally I would click on it for like a second and go like, oh, that's interesting. And I would click out, because Twin Peaks to me is so special, so specific, so I jokingly and say spiritual, but it's true, that I really did not want to bring in that internet crowd into that for me.
Right.
So I stayed away from it. After I did my interview with Jennifer Lynch, I sent that out to a number of Twin Peaks websites and Facebook pages. It was posted on the Welcome to Twin Peaks page that Peter Dom runs. It was also posted on, at the time, it was called Bring Back Twin Peaks the TV Facebook page that Joe Powers and James were running.
Right.
James really liked the interview, and he got back to me and he said, oh, this is really interesting. And, it'd be great to talk to you sometime. And I said, sure, why not? I mean, I was in sort of a kind of in a Twin Peaks zone at that point, because I had talked with her and things like that. So I was like, sure, that sounds like fun. And then James was like, so why don't we like record like an episode where you, me, and Joe talk about Twin Peaks? And I was like, sure, that sounds fun. Now, I had no idea, Eric, that doing something like that was going to make me, Cameron of Obnoxious Anonymous, what's the word, persona non grata in the Twin Peaks community, because people seem to think that you're picking sides.
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing an interview with these guys, so you're on their side. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not picking sides with anybody. They wanted to do a video, and we did a video, Anyway.
What are the sides too? Like, I'm not even clear on that. Like, what is one side for versus what another side is for? Like,
exactly.
That's what confuses me about a lot of that.
It's so bizarre. So I they asked me if I wanted to admin on the page, and I was like, sure. I mean, I would just post up some of my pictures of things that I had collected throughout the years, and it was a lot of fun. But then I started getting this blowback. Oh, you're one of them. And I was like, wait, one of who? I don't even know anything. I mean, I would post in my spare time. Apparently, Joe and James had all these problems, all these people all through the community. I had nothing to do with it. It was definitely guilty by association.
Right.
So James spent a lot of time on the Doug forums. I didn't. I posted, I think, 3 times in entirety over the course of 2.5 years or something like that. Which I thought was hilarious, because it meant I had spent no time in there whatsoever. But James would, as we continued to make more and more videos, he would post them in the Doug forum as just being another outlet. Hey, Twin Peaks fans, this is out there.
Right.
So maybe that's what they're referring to as trolling. I have no idea. But it certainly was not me in there like yelling at people and screaming at people.
Yeah.
So that was quite amusing there to be accused of that. I never asked James to post it in Dugpa, but so what? He was. I mean, a lot of people post all kinds of weird shit in Dugpa.
Yeah.
So he says that you guys stole the spoilers there for a scoop. Occasionally we would read things that people were talking about when I was a part of the Dugpa before they booted me out. I remember trying to log in one time and says, you have been booted from this community. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, James, what did you do? Anyway, because but occasionally I would go on there and just read what people were thinking about. And, like a lot of shows that talk about, a lot of YouTube shows that talk about TV shows, they search the internet for what's in the news, what people talking about, and they create show notes.
Yeah.
And one of the things was that I wanted to bring in some of the things that you guys were talking about as possible discussion points, because it's what the internet as a whole was talking about.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, this is somebody who never wanted to have anything to do with the Twin Peaks internet community. So, but I was trying to, I don't know. I mean, I was definitely at this point part of that world, but I wasn't necessarily engaging with it. I wasn't doing a lot of posts and things like that.
Yeah.
But the thing, like I said, I was just trying to bring into the videos what everyone was talking about. But the other thing is that a lot of the things that people were posting in Dugpa, people were also sending to the Facebook pages, or to my Facebook page, Obnoxious and Anonymous, or to the email account for Obnoxious Anonymous, or messaging me privately on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So the same information, if it was on Dugpa, a lot of times those people posting stuff, not everybody, but a lot of them, were taking that information and forwarding stuff to us. Or if they posted on Dugpa, they'd also post it to us. Right. Or post it to me. So it was hard to know what was stuff we grabbed from Dugpa as being, discussion points, or what stuff was just sent to us as part of the mailing in the Twin Peaks community, right? So I didn't mean any offense, but they got really offended when the new show started coming out, and they people were up there filming David Lynch filming the Twin Peaks up in Snoqualmie and North Bend. Yeah. And they were all trying to impress each other with what pictures they got, and this and that, and what they found out, and stuff around the town. And I was like, I just jokingly said it was kind of a dick measuring contest to see who could get more shit on Twin Peaks earlier. And it was, honestly, I mean, it just felt like, who could just get all the details instead of these hashtag everyone was sending around, keep the mystery alive.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep the mystery alive until you go into this forum, this like dark web forum of Twin Peaks people that sit around and say, oh my God, I think Shelley's boob is like 6 inches bigger than it was in 1991. And it's like, oh my God, you disgusting little perverts. But no, I thought it was hilarious. Anyway, so James and I just jokingly said something like this, and we were banned. But it just made total sense, but I just always found it funny that I'm one of the few people who's actually like talking about Twin Peaks on like a mass scale of people. Yeah. I mean, yes, I understand the last video got 300 views, but a lot of times the videos get several thousand views. A lot of times it depends on what we're talking about or who my guest is or stuff like that. But thing is, though, is that these videos play. People tell me they download them, they turn them into MP3s, they listen in their car, so there's not real like official numbers out there as like who's listening. But you don't get, if you only get something like 300 views, then how am I getting interviews with James Marshall and Piper Laurie and Ian Buchanan and Catherine E. Coulson before she died, and Jennifer Lynch? And, I'm the only person who's ever interviewed Jennifer Lynch for over 2 hours and then uploaded the full interview on the internet.
Yeah.
So these people who just act like that, I'm just like the worst person to ever come out of Twin Peaks is ridiculous. You guys should fucking look at yourselves in the mirror. But it ends with, if it isn't obvious, I think you and James are bottom feeders. And that's how he ends his beautiful poetic post here. I'm gonna say this to you. If you got a problem with anybody in the Twin Peaks community, have a problem with them. Whatever James, Joe, Eric, Dirk, anybody in the Twin Peaks community does, don't blame me. You know, Dirk went to the Twin Peaks Festival. He had some issues with some of the people there. My podcast got flack for that. And it's like, that's not my problem.
Right.
If I am responsible for myself. If a guest comes on and says a bunch of stuff and you don't agree with, fine, don't agree with them. But don't pigeonhole me with all of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, Eric, what do you think of what I'm saying?
We've talked, I mean, this is a specific incident that happened here, but we've talked about this before and I've never seen it in any other fan community because, like, I'm a fan of Star Trek. I'm a fan of Star Wars. I'm a fan of Game of Thrones. I mean, I'm a fan of a lot of different things. But it seems to me like the online Twin Peaks community has this, like, self-created caste system where some fans judge themselves to be more legitimate than others, or that their behavior and what they say is somehow more important than what other people say. And I just don't understand where that comes from. And I guess I don't get why, like, I guess because Twin Peaks is like a pseudo intellectual kind of endeavor. It's not just, car chases and explosions. There's some thought and some, you know, film theory courses probably explore David Lynch's work. So, there's more esoteric, you know, brainy kind of stuff involved with it. I don't know, but
I'll tell you one theory I have.
what is it?
And that is because David Lynch deals with lightness and darkness and reality and dreams and realism and surrealism. I think we are sometimes dealing with people that are a little not all there in the head. No, I mean it, because other shows like the fans of the Golden Girls don't have this problem, right? But Twin Peaks is dealing with so many different moods and feelings, and like I said, realism and surrealism and avant-garde and everything like that. It's like it just. I mean, come on. I mean, the person who truly grooves to Inland Empire probably has a few screws loose. Not saying you can't like the movie. I'm just saying that if that is the be all to end all of your movie loving existence,
it takes a certain kind of person to enjoy. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, like, I love Twin Peaks. I just adore David Lynch, but as much as I delve deep into the whole mythology and just David Lynch in general, I'm not nearly the obsessive that someone like James is.
Well, I mean, and again, first of all, I'm one of James' biggest fans. James can sometimes just make me laugh by just, a facial expression. So I'm a huge fan of James, but James has a way of, because James sometimes participated, I don't know if he does anymore, but just in the general, like, entertainment videos that we would do. And he would somehow take, like, a news item about, like, Michael Bay and Transformers 5 and somehow bring it back to the James Evelyn storyline in season 2. And it's somewhat masterful how he managed to pull that off. But
and also maddening, because I'm trying to talk about something else. Yeah. But like, let me give you a little peek behind the curtain here. So I message Eric. I message lots of people. We talk about all types of things. James is the only person I get up in the morning and there's a couple messages from him, and they're all Twin Peaks related. And it's not even news. It's like a new picture he found on the internet, or a weird story he found out of Russia or something like that.
Yeah.
And I've said to him countless times, can we have a conversation that is not David Lynch or Twin Peaks? And he's like, sure, Cameron, that sounds great. Oh, by the way, have you seen this new picture of Twin Peaks? It goes roundabout. So what I've said to him many times is, James, if you are going to talk to me for 20, 30 minutes about Twin Peaks, then we're just going to record it.
Yeah.
And put it up on the podcast. So in a way, would there have been a Twin Peaks Thought of the Day podcast without James? The answer is no. He is the person who lit the match for this entire thing. Now, I try to get sometimes other people on here so there's a different point of view, so it's not just James every video screaming animal life. As you know, as funny as it is, it's great to have other points of view.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he is the one that kind of was just like, come on, Cameron. I mean, every weekend, I'm like, hey, you know, we should maybe do a video about this and that. Well, there's some new Twin Peaks news. Let's talk about that. So, all right, let's make James happy. Let's do a Twin Peaks video. Now, I'm thrilled to do them too, but he is the one that kind of prods me along, like, come on. We should really do one. And that's why I encouraged him on his own YouTube channel to start doing his own videos as well. Because then when I'm at work, I don't get the pressure of, I can't wait for Saturday. We're going to do a Twin Peaks video. I'm just like, James, you have the recording materials now. Go ahead, talk about what you want to talk about on this Monday while I'm at work. Have fun. And it's great because it gets him out there, talks with other people. It's healthy for him.
Yeah.
You know, it's wonderful. But what I'm saying is, if James has ever bothered you, if he's ever pestered you, if he's ever done something that's upset you or said something nasty or used his British wit to like insult you, that's entirely on him. All right. And just because he's a guest on this podcast doesn't make me the same person as him. I don't troll people, you know. I mean, and I listen, Joe has a lot of issues too, apparently, from the past. I don't know a lot about them or specifics. Yes, he peed on the last podcast live on YouTube. That was he thankfully positioned the camera in such a way that we didn't see everything, but we got awfully close. But that to me is part of the charm of these Twin Peaks Thought of the Day videos, is because all the other Twin Peaks podcasts, and you know, I don't listen to them, I have to say, but I have heard bits and pieces, and it's very much like, welcome to the Twin Peaks podcast. Larry, do you have your pie ready? Hank, do you have your coffee? Is it black as midnight on a moonless night? Okay, folks, today we are going to be discussing episode 28, directed, by, and it's just like that, right? It's so lifeless. It's so boring. I'm so happy you guys are doing it. That's great. But I myself don't engage with that kind of podcast.
Yeah.
I want a Twin Peaks podcast that is alive, that is funny, that is interesting, provokes discussions, gets heated arguments, and you know, because when we started this, you have to understand, Eric, this podcast started years before the Blu-ray set had even been announced,
right?
Or the new show had been announced. So James and I, if you go back to those early episodes, James and I are having these heated, passionate Twin Peaks discussions, and there's no reason to be having them because the show's not coming back. But here we are doing it. And I think that, you know, so to be called a bottom feeder and that we're basically the bane, or I am the bane of Twin Peaks fandom out there. It's like, first of all, I have to say thank you for writing that, because if I wasn't making some sort of difference in the Twin Peaks community, he wouldn't be writing that to me. That's something you write to somebody that you feel threatened by. Because if you listen, there's a lot of things I don't like, but I can ignore them.
Yeah.
Right. For me to sit down and write a comment like that.
Yeah.
First of all, I wouldn't. But if I ever did, it would be to something I truly, got into my soul and burned me alive.
He was very passionate about his feelings for you and James. That's true. I
know. He probably wants to date us. All right. So before we go, I just want to share some of these wonderful reviews of Fire Walk with Me here that I just came across tonight. One of the things that's interesting is that people talk about Fire Walk with Me so dark and just graphic, and I've always maintained that Fire Walk with Me actually is pretty tame compared to what it could have been. It's not that graphic. It's not that sexual. There's moments here and there, but it's not like, I think the tone is there more than what you see is there. It's not graphic violence all the way through.
It's kind of emotion. I think why people perceive it that way is that it's emotionally charged. So, like, if you think about in the movie, probably the most graphic scene, depending on how you define such things, would be the incest rape of Laura by Bob, which again we know is Leland. That might be the most graphic thing in the movie. And if you really just try and take an objective step back, what do you even really see? I mean, yes, that it's two people having sex, but like everybody's fully clothed. It's more of an emotional battering that you take in that scene.
Right.
So sorry, just to your point, it's
Yeah.
Even her death isn't all that violent. I mean, there's some blood, but you don't see gore. It's kind of all implied.
Right. No, I agree. This first one says, this is from TV Guide here. If you ignore all the surrealistic stuff, which is a good plan, what's left is a linear and perhaps too lurid for TV soap opera of abuse, decadence, and drugs. Sherilyn Fenn, Lara Flynn Boyle, and Michael Onkine, among others, are not only missing, but sorely missed. Kyle's scenes are few and brief. Advice to others: get yourself a donut and a cup of damn fine coffee and settle down and watch Murder, She Wrote instead. It's fantastic.
Very good.
Okay. So the next one is, this is from one of my local newspapers here. Fire Walk with Me delivers for Peaks Freaks only. And this has one of my favorite beginnings to a review for this movie. It says Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me begins with someone smashing a TV set with a lead pipe, which may represent director David Lynch's message to the medium where this material originated. It ends with murdered homecoming queen Laura Palmer laughing, which may represent his message to us. Yeah, this is says, why is this movie necessary? Because there may be enough Peaks freaks who will plunk down the bucks to see this yet again. No wonder Laura's laughing. Oh my god, I just think it's hilarious. Yeah, this one says, throughout the first season, Lynch carefully constructed his own off-center universe in the world, in the town of Twin Peaks. But in the second season, he began violating everything he had so carefully built. And by the time this movie's over, the fans will even feel violated. Yeah, it's hilarious to me. Yeah, Lynch pulls out his well-worn bag of tricks and tries to appear profound by confusing the hell out of us.
I gotta tell you, when I get into conversations with people who talk about like the genius of the like convenience store scene, I'm always skeptical because I don't understand a damn thing happening in that scene. Like the theatrical version especially is complete, like, what the hell is happening? At least in the missing pieces you get some glimmer of narrative, but there's not much.
Well, I got news for you. Fire Walk with Me, got booed at the Cannes Film Festival. That David Bowie sequence should have just been ripped out of that movie because it's over and done with in less than a minute and a half.
Right.
They should have just replaced it with that full above the convenience scene, because at least that, while you may be confused by it, at least there's some sort of sense because you can kind of follow what the little man is saying about pure air and all that stuff. Yeah. Here's one of my favorite reviews, though, Fire Walk with Me, which is Big Screen's Twin Peaks stuck in a rut. And I was visiting some friends at this time. This is from August 30th, 1992. I had not seen Fire Walk with Me yet. I was making my way down the state of California to see it in my town. And so I was like, oh, I want to see what Twin Peaks got in the paper for the review. Here's the review. Got 1 star. Right? And I was like, oh shit. And but it says, which I just love. And again, keep in mind what this person's writing and what you know of Fire Walk with Me, what we've said about Fire Walk with Me. Says Lynch goes wild with self-indulgence and leering sexuality, neither of which is as attractive or seductive as the coy teasing and mind-bending he did on TV. Leering sexuality.
Well, there is one scene that comes to mind, and it's I think like the first Laura James scene, because if you think about it, it's sort of like they meet in that room and they're kind of talking, and then like the camera just sort of pans down, it's like staring at Laura's breasts for like a pretty like it's not just like down and then we move to something else. Like they're kind of like staring at her breasts for like several seconds, and there really seems to be no purpose to the shot other than like, hey, topless Cheryl Lee. I don't know that the rest
when I think leering sexuality, I think hang on, so let me see if I can focus this camera. There it goes. When I think leering sexuality, I think of Laura Palmer on the bed in her garter belt in her underwear, like trying to get dressed, and her legs are all spread.
Yeah, that's okay. That one qualifies too. Yeah.
But here, okay, well, moving on here. This is the part that got me excited, even though it got 1 star in this review. It says, as Laura does drugs and whores around, the film degenerates into just another moralizing slasher film. Think David Lynch's Prom Night or Friday the 13th. I'm telling you, that made me want to see the movie more than ever. That's not at all the movie we got. That's not all the movie we got. It says in which Lynch has the sexually active punished with violence. Interesting. And then this is something that a lot of Twin Peaks fans had problems with. The town of Twin Peaks, a marvelously developed organism on TV, has no personality now. In fact, in this movie, the town doesn't exist at all. That is a fair point.
I agree with that, because if you think about the only part of the movie that really touches on the town is Laura's brief visit to the Double R Diner, which is barren and empty. And even when Laura goes outside, there's nobody around except for, eventually Mrs. Tremond and her grandson.
Right.
But, in the series, everything felt like even like just the establishing shot of the Double R Diner in the series was, a logging truck going by. There was some other car traffic. Whenever you were in the diner, there was always somebody having food, eating. You'd hear some rattling around back in the kitchen. In the movie, it's so focused on Laura that that one scene, even that scene, which does kind of get outside of just Laura for a moment, feels desolate and empty. Which, to be fair, could have been what Lynch wanted. But it's fair to point out that if you're making a Twin Peaks movie, no matter how focused it is on a particular character, you're sort of losing something about what the series was and what the story was when you rob it of that life. So again, I'm very critical of that movie. I do like it, but I definitely understand the criticisms of it. It seems like these reviewers back then were kind of right on the ball with that.
So keep in mind, this one person out of several that criticized me and the channel for potentially leaking spoilers from the set.
Yeah.
And I want to show you guys, if I can hold this up. This is a wonderful, I have to just tell you guys about this real quick. This is a wonderful scrapbook. When I was in high school, we had to do something. You had to do sort of like a Christmas gift for people in your class.
Yeah.
And you kind of had to do something within like a certain budget, let's say $10 or whatever that, and you draw names out, Secret Santa style. And this kid who really, I don't know, I mean, like he and I always had like a interest in like the same girls growing up and that type of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we were freshmen in high school here. But anyway, he, I guess, got my name, and I didn't know this. And then when he gave me this thing, I was like, oh, okay, I guess you were my Secret Santa. I opened it up, and he made me this like Twin Peaks scrapbook, in which he went and got microfiche and printed up articles for me.
Wow.
Right. So these are a lot of like the original articles. And then he left a lot of blank spaces, for me to add in my own stuff here. And one of the things that I put in here, there's some really cool things in here that I should maybe just do a separate video sometime and show some of these off. But one of them that I want to show is that people complain about hashtag keep the mystery alive.
Yeah.
In 1991, summer of 1991, Twin Peaks is over, Twin Peaks is canceled. I open up TV Guide, and this is there. This article, big screen Twin Peaks promises heaps of shrieks. And I'm like, what the hell? There's a Twin Peaks movie?
Yeah.
Keep in mind, there's no internet at this point. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, Twin Peaks I thought it was canceled. And so I'm sitting there like going, what the hell? And I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be sort of a conclusion to the series maybe, right?
Yeah.
This is what the article says. Now, keep in mind, people complain about spoilers today.
Yeah.
Here's what the article says. When the final installment of David Lynch's Twin Peaks is released in theaters next spring, not the summer, because it opened August 28th, 1992.
Right.
I guess they're referring to the Cannes Film Festival premiere. Even the most serious Peaks fiends may be unprepared for the emotional lynching that awaits them. TV Guide. Think about this today. This would never happen today. TV Guide received a sneak peek at the entire screenplay for Fire Walk with Me.
Oh, wow.
And found Lynch's tools of trade, titillation, mutilation, and deviation in tip-top form. The script, co-written by Lynch and Bob Ingalls, focuses on the last 7 days in the life of Laura Palmer. For the first time, Laura's murder by her father Leland will be shown in all of its gruesome detail. In another scene of Lynchian luridness, Leland will crush the skull of Teresa Banks with a pipe. As her diary indicated in the series, Laura's final days are spent in the fast lane. It seems that only by engaging in nihilistic behavior can she avoid the evil spirit Bob. Her sex scenes include such participants as boyfriend Bobby Briggs, James Hurley, Jacques Renault, Leo Johnson, an unknown truck driver, and a threesome with Teresa Banks and Ronette Pulaski. That is not at all the movie we got.
No.
More surprising, though, are the lax morals displayed by Laura's best girlfriend, the seemingly saintly Donna Hayward, now played by Maura Kelly as a result of Lara Flynn Boyle's unavailability, who tries to keep up with Laura's frantic pace. Series fans will be relieved to know that almost all of the major characters will appear on the big screen.
Well, if they're reviewing the screenplay, I can see why they would have thought that.
With the addition of David Bowie as a time-traveling FBI agent. Now, in the movie, you can't get a time-traveling FBI agent from that.
Right.
But that's from the script. Chris Isaac is a time-bound Fed, and Harry Dean Stanton as the owner of a trailer park. Despite talk that Agent Dale Cooper was going to be phased out, he plays a major role in this film. though his partner in crime, Harry Truman, returns for only a minor stint. Out of the picture completely is sultry sex kitten Audrey Horne.
Yeah.
Can you imagine TV Guide or something like that today getting, oh, we got the Infinity War script, and here's what you can look forward to?
Yeah.
It would never happen. I think that when I read that, oh man, I was like, I cannot wait to see Fire Walk with Me. Now, the other thing is that to me, I mean, we're living in a spoiler culture.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some spoilers, real and otherwise.
Yeah. And she's telling you who's in the movie, who's not in the movie, giving you
He's
plot points. Yeah.
telling me Leland kills Teresa with a pipe.
I don't, again, if you watch the series, because we know Teresa Banks was murdered, I don't know how much of a spoiler that is, but you know.
No, but with a pipe. We don't know how she dies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, let me see if there's anything else in here that I want to throw out here. Oh, this is hilarious. I love these like trivia Twin Peaks things that people came up with. And like they're the stupidest questions you could ever ask a Twin Peaks fan. Are you ready? They were trying to stump you with this one.
Okay.
Who actually discovered the body of Laura Palmer?
Is that a Pete Martell, correct?
Yeah, that they're trying to trip you up here, Eric.
Okay.
What is the name of Dale Cooper's secretary?
That's a real question.
That's a real question.
Okay.
Name the composer for Twin Peaks.
I never pronounced his name right. Angelo Badalamenti.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So before we go, I'll just leave you with this wonderful quote. And as Eric being a new father, he'll appreciate this. Here's a wonderful quote from the man himself, David Lynch here. The idea of birth was just pure meat, blood, and hair.
That sums it up pretty well, I think.
Well, all right. I'll leave you with this better one. I love this cover Film Threat magazine. Cooper and Company kick ash in Fire Walk with Me.
That's
they really did think that this was going to be like some secret blockbuster. Oh, and here's the best one. They do this whole review of all the episodes, like if it's worth watching, if this is like a dead, terrible episode.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's yeah, like it says for the final episode, even Lynch's maze-like capper or crapper in the red room reeks of recycled weirdness. Bob takes Coop's soul at the end, and it doesn't work.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Especially since that's, but you know, maybe it's just revisionism now, but you know, that episode's considered to be, you know, on par with his best.
Well, I can understand, I mean, people thinking that, because I mean, that scene when you first saw it did seem to go on and on and on and on and on broadcast television. Here's the other thing. Okay, so we have this magazine. This is before the movie opens. It says, Twin Peaks spawned enough red herrings in its 28 installments to stock Puget Sound. And most of them, including the Bookhouse Boys and that silly business about UFOs, won't be reeled in by the film. However, Dale Cooper will have a close-range exchange with Diane.
Yeah, I guess.
Ingalls says, we pondered whether or not we should let people see her, but I don't want to let that secret out. Thanks, Bob Ingalls. You know you cut that scene out. And thank you for doing so, because that scene is god-awful. Okay, now he says, now the magazine continues, but we do. We will let this out. Although Film Threat didn't get a screening of Fire Walk with Me, it got the next best thing, the script.
Oh, another script.
Let me tell you something. This production is very happy to just be giving out the screenplay.
Yeah.
TV Guide got it. Film Threat got it. So Lynch back then didn't really give a shit. Why? Because there was no internet.
Right.
What are they going to do? Xerox it and send it to a friend of theirs?
Right.
So okay. In a scene set in Gordon Cole's FBI office, Dale Cooper is shown standing in a doorway conversing with Diane. But Diane remains off screen and her voice is rendered unintelligible in the way of Charlie Brown's school teacher. Wah, wah, wah. Now, they didn't include that in the missing pieces, did they?
They should have. I would have liked that.
Yeah. So then it goes through, the script. And then it says, and this part bummed me out when I read it. Here I am, like 16 years old, and I can't wait to see this movie. And I read this, and I was like, "Oh, that sucks." It says a few brief visits are paid to the hotel lobby from hell, the Red Room, though nothing happens that can top the outrageous doppelgang bang in the third and final episodes of the series. So that's that's kind of a bummer. There's no doppelganger gang bang in this thing. It says it appears that some of the film's best moments will play out through dialogue in the dysfunctional Palmer household, particularly during a tense dinner scene in which Leland Palmer, infected with the spirit of Bob, berates Laura for not washing her hands. Yep. Well, that scene made the cut.
It did. What's interesting is I didn't perceive that scene. I didn't perceive him to be possessed by Bob there. Was that your perception?
Yeah.
I thought that was really because that's one of the things, again, I've spent so much time picking on Firewall.
Well, he says to her, "Look at this dirt right under this fingernail."
Oh, that's true. I guess part of what, again, it's even said in the series about, I think when Bob is leaving Leland, he makes a comment about like he left his, maybe you remember the line better, but it's like he left his morality behind or something. I thought one of the strengths of the movie was in making it very clear that like Leland himself was like a deeply flawed guy. In the series, he very much comes off as like a victim of possession, but the movie to me made it seem like he was a lot more complicit, like having the affairs. Like I thought that was just Leland. I didn't think that was just Bob. And I think Bob kind of just would jump in and out and, cause havoc.
Oh, I know. I think Leland was having the affairs.
Right.
But that would also, Bob would kind of come in and out of that. And,
right.
So it says, where are we? Ingalls says moviegoers will be able to enjoy the film without seeing the series.
Okay.
Many people did see the movie before the show. But fully understanding the movie without seeing the show, no.
I don't fully understand the movie, and I've seen it and the show multiple times.
Okay, now here's the biggest bullshit that is in this article. To ensure that the screenplay stood firmly on its own while remaining true to Twin Peaks, the script was flagged by several non-viewers as well as diehard fans in the technicality department.
What?
Really? So they gave the script to non-fans and Twin Peaks fans to basically footnote it and make sure that it all worked together as a cohesive whole.
Okay.
Bullshit. Because we all know Leland Palmer called Laura from Ben Horne's office the night she died, and the phone rang once. Who is it that calls her in the movie? James Hurley. So are we saying James Hurley called Laura from Ben Horne's office? Sheriff Truman traced the call. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, moving on here, because this just drives me nuts. Oh no. I have to add this part. A researcher was hired to check the storyline's consistency with The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer and the Twin Peaks tapes of Agent Cooper and other literary spin-offs. Really? So the Agent Cooper book that talks about him and Sam Stanley investigating Teresa Banks' murder, that was cross-referenced for this movie. I'm gonna just make sure I understand this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then it says, luckily for the writers, meaning Lynch and Ingalls, there were few logistical problems. The pilot was so loaded with stuff, so marvelously ambiguous, that we could always find a place to get around things. We were helped by the fact that Cooper wasn't on the Teresa Banks case. He was in the book, if you're crossing literary spinoffs.
Yeah.
And that he said he wanted Albert, not Sam Stanley, when he drove toward Twin Peaks in the pilot. No, he didn't. He said that to Sheriff Truman in the morgue.
Yeah, he said that to his tape recorder as he's
to Sheriff Truman in the morgue.
Yeah.
Not when he's driving into town.
Right.
And it says that allowed us to open up the bank story. Yes, we understand what Bob Ingalls is talking about. What I've said before, they used the pilot in many ways to come up with scenes for this movie, right? So the fact that, James tells Donna that Laura told him that Bobby killed a guy. Well, that creates a set piece of let's have Bobby kill a guy.
Yeah.
Right. Or Donna telling him the same scene. I knew her better than she thought I did. So that creates her topless in the pink room scene. Come on. It's ridiculous. Anyway, here's the best part, or one of the best parts, in my opinion. Ingalls says there were few advantages gained doing Fire Walk with Me for theatrical release rather than TV broadcast. We didn't have to worry about 14-page acts. What was unique about the series was that we just did about everything we wanted on it. The Murder of Maddie by Leland was definitely R-rated. It was more R-rated than the movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Says if some of the scenes that made it onto the TV show were rated R, then the nightmares Cheryl Lee suffered while making Fire Walk with Me would be NC-17. And then it says the climatic scene set in a rusted out Pullman is indeed a doozy. Ready for this? Filled with phantasms, guttural cries, and stomach churning violence. That's not what we saw.
No.
What's more, it was completed under a set of strangely coincidental circumstances. Because of delays, Laura's murder ended up being shot on Halloween, which also happens to be the shared birth date of Frank Silva and Michael Anderson, who play Laura's tormentors.
What?
Yes. This made me love Cheryl Lee, though, where she says, flushing out the cocaine and sex-addicted Laura unearthed long buried memories of Cheryl Lee's own high school years.
Oh.
Well, hello, Cheryl Lee.
Yeah.
When can we get you for an interview? Jesus. It says, it concludes with, unlike Laura Palmer, however, Cheryl Lee loves asparagus. And then this is where the magazine's being kind. Mm-hmm. And while the reviews that came out of cons last spring for Fire Walk with Me were decidedly mixed, the actors and technicians who have worked with David Lynch are proud that they've helped define the term Lynchian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there it is, guys. This one, Cooper and Company kick ass in Fire Walk with Me. But this is my other favorite part down here for you Evil Dead fans out there. Sam Raimi unleashes the Medieval Dead. That's what Army of Darkness was called before it was changed. The Medieval Dead.
Ah.
Yeah. So anyway. All right, Eric. We went so much longer than I was prepared to do tonight. But I just heard my wife putting out the cats. I know she's pissed off that I didn't join her for our 8:00 watching viewing party. But anyway, Eric, thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate it. I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah, I have been remiss, so I definitely wanna get back in the spirit of things.
Well, making a move into your first house that you bought, that's a big step.
It has been a hectic period, that's for sure. That's
So, yeah.
I've
But at least,
definitely lost some months of my life to this whole endeavor.
but you're going to be all ready and all situated when the new Twin Peaks airs May
Yes,
21st.
yes.
So I think it's interesting that the end of Fire Walk with Me was shot on Halloween, and Mark Frost's new book is coming out Halloween of this year.
Yeah, symmetry. There you go.
That's the Lynchian way.
It
So,
is.
all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate you taking time out of your Monday night and spending it with us. We will see you next time. Be sure to give this video a like and, comment and let us know what you think of some of the things we touched on tonight. We really appreciate all your kind words and support, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Night.